Well, good Monday morning to you. Welcome to our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. I'm your host, Jim Tabor, along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition, located on Callan-Lorraine Road, just south of Pass Road in Gulfport. We do this every Monday morning. It is a live call-in show. So we invite you to call in and ask questions regarding our topic of the morning or anything regarding your health, because that's what this show is all about, helping you live a healthier lifestyle. Our phone lines are 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. You have a question, you can pass it along to us. Call in and pass it along to our producer, and they will pass it along to us. This morning we're talking about something that millions of Americans deal with, but more so this time of the year because of the holidays. And we're talking about anxiety and depressive disorders, or better known as depression. So what exactly is anxiety and depression? What causes it?
Well,
there's a lot of causes.
A lot of causes, okay, situational stuff. Like, for instance, this time of year, anxiety about, did I get the right present, or blah, 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 you know, all the stuff that goes on around Christmas and so on and all that, and the holidays and the parties and blah, blah, whatever. You know, social, everything. And some people just don't, if you're like me, you don't want to get involved in a lot of that social stuff. You know, I don't have that social anxiety, though. I just say, I'm not going to do it. So I'm pretty easy with it. But some people are very anxious about stuff like that. So it causes a lot of problems. And then, you know, we've got the seasonal affective disorder, the SAD. Shorter days, you know, we don't get as much sunshine.
I thought they weren't going to change the
I thought so too, but then they are.
the daylight savings thing.
They can't make up their mind.
Yeah, I don't know.
But when I heard, you know, on our news here just recently, said, well, we're going to change back, fall back again here in a couple of weeks. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I thought we weren't doing that anymore.
I don't know.
I thought I heard that too, and then when I saw that it was changing, I thought, well, maybe I just dreamed that. I don't know.
Well, we had the same dream then.
Okay, we had the same dream. Okay.
Same dream, yeah. But you know, the things like that. Well, it's like shorter days. Well, I don't care what time frame we're on, basically.
Because we're already shorter without even changing the time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, without that, so and that does cause a lot of problems with a lot of people. You know, get enough sun. Hell, we've got enough people around here that don't get enough sun in the summertime.
Right, because they don't go outside.
Yeah, they just don't go outside for whatever reason.
Now, the good thing is where we live, people can still go outside during the winter. Now,
Yeah.
there are places that you can't.
That's true.
So around here, honestly, if it's 65 degrees, you can go sit in the sun. I mean, it's warm.
Actually,
to
it's
sit in the
really
sun.
nice to sit.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
really nice to
Yes,
sit in the sun. I mean, maybe if it's 30, maybe not, but we don't get that way very often. So we still can, but you do see, I mean, there's no doubt, we see vitamin D drop in the wintertime. We see people definitely with more depression. So it's about the weather and the amount of sun that you get, but it's also about just the time of the year. I mean, some people have lost loved ones, and Christmas is a hard time.
Right.
So anxiety we're finding anxiety tend to be year round now. The world is just a more stressful place. And even what people are watching on TV constantly and hearing what's going on in the world, it makes people a little anxious, because I hear that every day from people. I'm like, why? You know, we'll see that their cortisol is elevated, which cortisol is a stress hormone. And we are seeing higher elevations in much more people than we've probably ever seen. And probably since COVID. Honestly, when COVID hit and all the stress there, and even though now, I mean, it's always going to be out there, but now with things going on in the world, and I even have people say, I ask them, did something happen where, you know, you're more stressed? And they're like, no, just the world. I hear that a lot.
The world happened.
So
the world
unfortunately,
happened.
things like that tend to make, and some people's anxiety, I tell people a lot of times, it's part of their personality. I mean, some things you're just genetically born with, and part of it is your genetics, because it tends to run in families. There's no doubt depression and anxiety runs in families. So we do see it a lot in families. But even if that's the case, there are things that you can do for it. So, and I mean, people I think most people know anxiety and depression and what they are. And they're different. Anxiety.
Is there a difference in as far as the symptoms between the two, between anxiety?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're anxiety is you're just anxious, okay,
Right.
jittery, nervous,
nervous.
yeah, unsettled. You hear that one a lot, unsettled, and I don't know what settled means, but they're unsettled. Okay, so that's the kind of thing you hear there. Now, when you get into depression, of course, you're talking about, like, you know, doom and gloom. I mean, you know, the world's ending, blah blah blah.
And there's different degrees of depression too. I mean, you can actually have mild depression. You can have, I mean, of course, everything's mild, moderate, severe, but you really do talk to people, and some people it gets extreme where they can't control it. Now, there's many people out there with mild depression, and a lot of people at different times, situational, can make more depression. But some people get depressed for no reason, and that is actually, and the brain chemicals play a huge role in getting depressed, especially when there's no reason for it. Now, it's pretty normal to where if something's major happened and you get a little depressed about it, that's actually pretty normal.
Rick Conan.
But it's when people get depressed for no reason, or just because the seasons change, that is a little bit more.
Now, there's a lot of research. You know, we talk about probiotics all the time, and you know, there's a lot of research come out within the past few years that's hit. I mean, some of it's hit the news, but the majority of it's not. But it's out there in the scientific community. There's this big link between the gut and the brain. Because when I was in school, back when rocks were cooling off and all that, they were a long time ago. But back then, we were taught, okay, that, so for instance, serotonin, which is the happy chemical of the brain, right? We were taught that, well, that's a chemical made in the actual brain itself. I come to find out just a few years ago, no, not really. About 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut. So if your gut's not right, your brain's not right.
Right, so it actually increases depression to not have your basically good bacteria in there where it should be, which
Right.
most people don't.
No.
Because we actually can do stool testing and see where people's probiotics are and if they have the diversity and everything else, and most people's are not that are tested.
Right.
So probiotics are one of the things that's definitely good for depression. Vitamin D plays a huge role in depression. They've linked that. Fish oil and vitamin D, there are so many studies using those two together, and it helps with depression. So that's two things pretty much everybody can do. And you want to know where your D level is so you know what to do with it, but everybody can do some. And then the fish oil, really good. We actually have a fish oil that has vitamin D in it. Our omega-3 is a real high strength EPA DHA fish oil with vitamin D.
Take 3 a day.
Yep, and so that's one that anybody can kind of take.
Very good.
All right, 10 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we're talking about depression and anxiety this morning. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. At 12 minutes after 9 o'clock, we're talking about depression and anxiety, two big things that happen to a lot of people, especially this time of the year with the holidays and so many different reasons that we've talked about. Is there a big difference between the two?
Yeah, we just talked about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, that was a couple of minutes ago.
That was a couple of minutes ago.
Next week we're going to talk about memory, right?
What can I take for that? Is the issue more common in men or women?
I would say that women will verbalize it
Right,
better.
that's what I would have said.
I think it's
Yep.
probably about equal, but men tend not to, it's a guy thing.
Men
We're-
tend
we're
to not say
depressed.
they're depressed.
Right.
And I actually, I mean, but men tend to get more angry.
Right.
When you have a man that gets angry quick and have a really short temper, they probably do have some depression. They don't call it depression. You rarely, and we do get men that come in and say they're depressed.
We do.
But you hear women a lot say it. But I think men do too, they just don't tell you.
Yeah. So I think it's probably equal
Yep.
in that respect. It's just a matter of how they talk about it, and
But
'cause-
if men tend to get angry really easy and mad at everybody, and I've had people call stuff that we give them for it, those pills that keep me from killing everybody. That's what they feel like. It actually keeps their anger down.
That's a good thing.
Their,
It keeps them
stress
chilling.
down.
Yeah, really.
And so that does make a difference. I mean, but men do have it. They just don't verbal. Like I'm
I
with
know
him.
you've got to be talking about 5-HTP.
5-HTP,
Exactly.
yeah. 5-HTP and GABA. 5-HTP is one we use a lot for depression because it increases serotonin. And it doesn't work the way the SSRIs work, which those are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. 5-HTP does not do that. 5-HTP is a plant, and it comes from a plant, the Griffinolia plant, but it actually turns into serotonin.
Yeah,
So
it's one step before serotonin.
Right.
And before you go running into the store asking for 5-HTP, you got to be sure that you're not already on a antidepressant.
Right. You
That's
cannot
that's
take it
the
with
key.
a prescription antidepressant.
Right.
So, but if you're not on one, the 5-HTP actually has some great other benefits too. It has been shown to help with headaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's been shown to help chronic pain. It's been shown to actually keep you from craving carbohydrates. So it's
Yeah.
actually shown to help weight loss. In itself, it doesn't burn fat or anything, but it keeps you from craving sugar as much, because sugar tends to be one of the things that increases your own serotonin, and people tend to just eat sugar, sugar, sugar when they have low serotonin.
Yeah.
So it does help with a lot of other things as well. But
I take 2 a day.
But yeah, 5-8, I've taken it for 30 years. So I mean,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people that take 5-HTP, but that is one thing that definitely can make a difference in depression.
It really does. You know, it's like say it can be a miracle. You know, it really can.
It's even used for attention deficit. That's another thing I forgot about. So it's been shown to actually help with attention deficit, and a lot of adults say, oh my gosh, when I think I have attention deficit. Well, a lot of people do to a degree. I mean, you'll get a lot of people that have a mild case, but the 5-HTP does help with that as well.
Can depression and anxiety lead to more serious health issues?
Sure.
Well,
I mean, it leads to suicide.
suicide is
And
one of
that's
the big
probably
ones.
one of the biggies.
I mean, honestly, that's one of the big things. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, mental breakdowns. I mean, yes, it can, in severe cases, definitely can make, people be hospitalized. So it definitely leads to more mental health issues. Mild can be worse if you don't do nothing for it.
Yeah.
So, and then it can actually snowball.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing too about when you're depressed, especially depression, and even anxiety, you know, typically they don't eat well. Okay, they don't pay as much attention to their diet, so they're kind of off their.
And that was going to actually be my next question. Can poor diet lead
Oh.
to anxiety or
Yeah,
depression?
sure. It's just like we talked about the probiotic thing. Like I say, that link between the gut and the brain is so big. I mean, the research. Here's the thing about research. What shows up in research today, before it's going to hit Main Street and you go down to your family doc and he or she's going to tell you about it, it's going to be 20, 25 years. Okay, so, you know, be ahead of it now. You're ahead of the curve if you're listening to the show right now, I promise you that. Because we'll read that research and we'll start applying it. And natural medicine is a lot quicker to pick up this stuff than the pharmaceutical industry or the general medicine. So, but we know that if we do those things and get those right kind of probiotics where our gut can make the neurochemicals it needs for the brain to function properly, then it's going to function better.
And
so,
like we say every time, stay off
Yeah.
the packaged processed food. The chemicals in that is not necessarily good for you.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's the chemicals, and actually fish. I mean, fish has been shown, like I said, fish oil really helps with the brain chemistry, so eating fish, but you really want some of your fatty fish and not necessarily your fried fish.
sardines.
Yep, sardines are really good.
Well, you pretty much just answered my next question, which
Oh,
was
what
what
was
are
that?
some of the best ways to fight these problems?
Okay, well, we've talked about depression a lot, and
Yeah.
we've definitely talked about the 5-HTP. There's actually something called SAMe that does play a really big role as well. But also,
And that was a
that's
question.
funny as a
Somebody
question
yeah,
just
somebody
popped up, and it was
on
about
the screen.
SAMe.
Well, how
They're
does
reading their
SAMe
minds.
help with depression?
Yeah. Well, you know, when you look at SAMe, I mean, it works two different ways on that. One, it's a big methyl provider, so
Yep.
you know, we've talked about methylation before and all that. It kind of gets into some complicated biochemistry, but if you don't methylate properly, you're going to have some issues. And so that's a big issue. So that's one way it helps, which helps with the serotonin pathways and all of its chemicals in there. So it's also great for the liver. It's one
Yep,
of the
and
best
for
things.
joints.
And for
So
joints, yeah.
SAMe is really good.
It's a really good stuff.
Yep.
Okay. It's 18 minutes after 9 o'clock. Our phone lines are open at 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. We'll be back in just a moment with our final segment and also a look at this week's special. And welcome back. It's our final segment of this morning's Doctor's Nutrition Show. It's 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Let's go ahead and show you what the special for this week is.
Yeah, two things. One, the labs, blood work for your cortisol level. Cortisol is really big. Cortisol and DHEA both coming from the adrenals, and the adrenals are overworked during anxiety and depression. So we're going to check those out for you. Normally it's 55, on sale this week for 35 for both those tests. And then of course the 5-HTP, the happy pill that Jim takes all the time. So he likes it. So it's on sale this week too.
Yeah. On the cortisol and DHEA, cortisol just plays, especially with anxiety.
Oh, yes.
Now, there's no doubt depression plays a role with both of those as well. And DHEA actually lowers as you get older. So we see a lot of people with low DHEA. But the cortisol can be both high and low, but that's why you want to check it and see where it is. If you do come in to check your cortisol, you want to be, it doesn't have to be fasting, but it does need to be early. So you do want to call ahead and get it scheduled because, of course, the way we do things with the lab is the store is not open until 10, but the lab's open from 8 to 10. But you have to know what you're doing. So call ahead if you're wanting to come to get it done so we can have it written down for you and know exactly, the nurse will know what to do when she gets there. And like I said, this week is when we have it. Our nurse is out Thursday and Friday. We have a fill-in nurse, but as long as you pay for it this week, you can come anytime.
Yeah.
There you go.
So just let y'all know.
All right, our phone lines are open at 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. We're talking about depression and anxiety.
Yep, we haven't talked a lot about what to do for anxiety. Now, depression, there's no doubt the 5-HTP helps with both anxiety and depression. And another thing I was going to mention for depression before we ended last time was something we have called brain reset, that we actually do see some good results with brain reset, adding it to, and you can take it if you're on an antidepressant. So a lot of people say I'm still depressed even though I'm on something. That's something that you can add, is that as long as you're not on a blood thinner, because it does have ginkgo in it. And so you can't, as long as you're not on a blood thinner, you can take the brain reset. But for anxiety, theanine is a really mild thing for anxiety, but it's actually really good. Theanine changes brain waves, and it actually makes them, the alpha waves in the brain, and when they're more active, it calms you down. So it's used for panic attacks, but it's also used to just think better and be focused. So it's good for attention deficit.
We use it for kids a lot.
We use it for kids, and it's so safe. We can give it to little kids. So theanine is one theanine is one you can add to any medication. Another good thing about theanine. There are some other things for anxiety. You know, you got your GABA, which GABA is a little bit more sedative, or it does help sleep more. It does lower cortisol. It does things like that. And then there's kava, there's valerian, there's all kind of things that help with anxiety, and everybody's different on what one works best for them, which is why we're there to answer your questions and figure out what might be best for you.
Are there any foods that help as far as
well, one of the big things
anxiety?
high in tryptophan is definitely turkey. And tryptophan,
Well, that just puts you to sleep.
I know. Well, that's because, even the 5-HTP helps sleep.
Yes.
So we usually do a higher dose at night.
See, you know, the tryptophan that's in turkey, well, 5-HTP is 5-hydroxytryptophan. And then, of course, serotonin is 5-hydroxytryptamine. So all these little amino acids just change forms a little bit as they go, and that's what, but turkey's probably one of the best things, believe it or not, one of the best things for food-wise, because it gives you that serotonin. Because serotonin is an amino acid that we don't get a lot of in the diet otherwise. It's one that's a little harder to get.
If you talk about foods, you got to talk about protein.
Yes.
Protein, which like he mentioned, amino acids. Amino acids are all your precursors to all your brain chemicals. Your dopamine comes from amino acids, your norepinephrine, the serotonin. So a lot of the brain chemicals, you have to have amino acids to do it. Well, where do you get amino acids? Protein. So you get people with protein deficiencies, they're also going to be deficient in these amino acids.
And that's something that we see a lot of nowadays is protein deficiencies.
We do.
You talk to the person that you're patient or something, sit down with, and you ask them about eating their protein, and well, I don't eat much. Okay, why? I mean, they think protein's going to make them fat, or something. I don't know.
And actually, low protein makes you gain
fat.
weight.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the symptoms of a protein deficiency is weight gain.
Yeah.
So you always want to do your protein first for that reason, but it definitely helps the brain chemistry.
Yeah.
So people don't think about that, and they don't ever link that together.
Right.
But your amino acids are so important. We even have a test called NutriEval. It's not that it's a cheap test, but if somebody has a lot of depression and anxiety and nothing is helping, it looks at every nutrient, including every single amino acid separately. It does what they call an Oates test, which looks at the organic acids, which plays a big role in which chemicals might be lacking in the brain. It does a lot of stuff, but then it also does your other nutrients. It does your omegas, so you can see the omega-3, omega-6, omega-9. It's a really good test. It's not necessarily cheap. It's like $5.25. So it's not a cheap test, but it's a good test.
Occasionally we turn to it because when all else fails, you get to that point, and it will answer a lot of questions.
It will give you exactly what you need to increase.
And the big thing on proteins, and I kind of stress this to all my people, eat a variety of protein. Don't just eat the same thing. Just, don't just grab a chicken, everything. Okay.
What about those that don't eat meat? Vegetarians?
Well, then they got their work cut out for them because it's harder to get.
Harder to get.
When you start talking about plant proteins, you got to eat a lot of plants to get those proteins. Now, we do have like a pea protein, and a lot of people use that are vegetarian, and it's something they can use because it comes from a brown pea, they call it. And it has a pretty good amino acid complex to it, and it's got a lot of protein, so they can substitute that.
Yep.
But they got to do it. I mean, you can't, if you don't, even if you're a vegetarian or vegan or whatever, you got to get that protein. I don't care what you do, you got to have it. If you don't have
And
it,
you got to get your B12 because B12
Right.
deficiency also plays a role in anxiety and depression. B12, folic acid. Another reason to do our whole panel, actually, but because D plays a role, B12 plays a role, folate plays a role, and all of our panels have those when we check them.
yeah.
So there's a lot of things that's involved. It's not just one thing.
Okay. Next week is Open Line Monday, which means you can call in and ask questions regarding anything regarding health. We don't necessarily come in with a topic. We'll come in with some fun facts, but
We'll have fun
you have
facts.
anything that you might want to talk about regarding your health. You can also find a lot of great information at doctorsnutrition.com and also on Doctors Nutrition Facebook page.
And YouTube.
Make sure you go to YouTube,
Go to YouTube.
and subscribe
Yeah.
because we're going to soon have a lot of new stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, that won't be here.
That won't be on the
It'll
TV,
be
yeah.
completely new. Yeah.
That's awesome. Anyway,
Yeah.
hope you have a wonderful week. Hope you have a happy week.
Yes.
And we will see you again next Monday morning at 9 o'clock here on the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Have yourself a wonderful day and drive safely out there. Bye-bye.
For more information on highlighting your business and services on Healthy Living South Mississippi, contact Jim Tabor at 896-1313.